Welcome to the Continuous Transformation Podcast, where spirit and science meet and creatively merge to give birth to the future. Disclaimer: high risk of life-transforming perspectives.
This is the best time to begin your continuous transformation process.
Your host is Advaitananda, a visionary, influencer, and scientist with a quantum physics background and more than 30 years' experience of yoga, tantra, and meditation practice and teaching. Episode 7. In this episode, we will look into the amazing perspectives that are revealed to us when we remove fear, the real enemy behind the so-called COVID crisis. Firing the questions today is Thomas Egebøl, an independent advisor and chairman who successfully looked the COVID crisis in the eye.
Fear is tempting for us because fear promise, which is absolute lie, promise safetyness.
Yes.
Fear promise, if you're afraid, you will be safe. But if you're courageous, you have more chances in a long run to be safe. In a long run. Fear promise an immediate result, and especially for people learning fast results, fast food, fast everything, quick results. Of course, what do you choose? A long, sustainable solution, courage in life, or a short-term, apparent solution, anyway, for your short-sightedness is okay? Fear. Hello, I'm Advaitananda, and this is the Continuous Transformation Podcast. For more than a year now, the whole world seemed to unite in the fight against an invisible enemy that we can all feel inside of us. And no, it's not the virus. It is what we all know as fear. The outer cause of that fear was known today as SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19. Somehow, we also associate this fear with the economical meltdown, or even the rise of the quote-unquote the other side, whatever the other side might be. Practically, we fear today that everything will be different. We are trying to hold on what we know. We are even saying that we are waiting for things to go back to normal. And we invented all kinds of expressions, such as the new normal, in order to try to cope with this insidious enemy, which is fear. Of course, this is not something new for humanity. Perhaps it is new for the generations that are now on the planet, living on the planet, but it seems that periodically humanity gets into a place where the crisis is forcing the majority to look for a solution that is out of the box, we call it today. With other words, we look for an update of perspective. We look for the progress to be born in our life, to make room for progress, and sometimes making room for progress, it seems we need to take a hammer and hammer down the walls that we previously built. Now, of course, all that is either triggered by aspirations or, as we know, is triggered by fear. When we systematically refuse to see some obvious truth in our life, and when we systematically refuse as a group, as a country, or as a society, we move in the strong incentive for the human race. The very strong incentive, which is fear. So with other words, we can see today that we learn from fear. Sometimes this fear is the reaction to a natural occurrence. Other times is the result of a man-made crisis as a part of social engineering that was used by groups and even by states, by governments for millennia in their more or less justified attempt to do the right thing and to help their people. We know today there are books and there are studies made about using fear and its strongly motivational effect to create all kind of engineering of society with good or sometimes catastrophic effects. But today we will not talk about the crisis as such. I already did it with other guests in previous episodes, and I will do it in further episodes. But we will look into the amazing perspectives that open to us if we remove fear. Because it's a fact today that a crisis comes with the rise of fears. And fears are shifting our perspective. Our entire life, we can say, the way we experience reality is dramatically influenced by our attitude in an extent that often is underappreciated. Fear, on the other hand, is a very powerful, insidious energy that paralyzes our capacity to act and keep us in a reactive state. The current crisis, on the other hand, is very personal. We have to realize the fact that a war, for instance, cannot be that personal. An economic meltdown cannot be that personal as it is a crisis of health. This potential crisis is affecting us all and is very personal. It's touching directly our life in the most intimate part of it, and therefore it becomes a direct threat of our existence in a very personal way. And what is the consequence of that? And very often I see we ignore this consequence is the fact that a deep fear arises from within. So even though people say, oh, we have seen crises like this before, don't worry, we've been through wars, we've been through all kinds of situations of life, but very few were of this magnitude, even though the magnitude was obviously inflated by the media and by this herd mentality that we have today so much. However, the herd is agglutinated together by fear that is very deep, because this crisis is very personal. So that's why the result of this very personal crisis is that we act like biological automatons that are pre-programmed to react on fear in certain ways. Now, of course, I know some are saying we should look into this as a man-made crisis, and therefore we should look what the master puppeteers want to obtain with this. Not today. We will look perhaps later into this issue, but one thing is very clear for me today. We react almost in unison, the immense majority of people, to a crisis that is generating personal experience of fear. Personal experience of fear which is paralyzing our capacity to act, and it makes us reactive. Of course, a fact is that we cannot grow while we are paralyzed by fear. We eventually survive when we are paralyzed by fear, and that is also not sure. Think about the example of a person who is drowning, and out of fear and out of this desire to survive is drowning the person who tries to save that person, in case that savior is not strong enough, stronger than the one he or she tries to save. But that is what we see today. Humanity is drowning any attempt to be saved just because of this action or reaction to fear. The question is now arising, can we find something more in this crisis? Can we find even opportunities? I know for some of you might sound almost like blasphemic to talk about opportunities in such a crisis. I chose today to shoot the questions a very good Danish friend of mine whose aim points exactly in that direction. So, welcome, Thomas, for
Thanks.
today. Thomas is born and raised in the great kingdom of Denmark. He is technically educated, and even though he has this formation, he followed the path of leadership coaching, and he occupied various executive positions in companies, especially in companies that aim to sail through the transformations of the world today. Thomas is one of the rare people whose appetite is transformation. And that's why actually I wanted him to join me today, because I've seen rarely people who look in the eye of the storm so straight as Thomas does. He had some board positions in IT and business and security networks. He works as an advisor for transformation in different companies. And in the private life, Thomas is the father of 3 wonderful kids and 3 dogs, which I understood you are very concerned where they are in this moment. You never know. And also, the big unknown of Thomas' life, he is the husband of a wonderful woman with whom he is for more than 20 years. So welcome, Thomas, to this journey in the eye of the transformation.
Thanks a lot, Walter.
I want to start with your take on the topic today. The topic, growth in time of Corona, because I know you've been looking into it quite a lot.
No, thanks a lot, Walter. I appreciate this opportunity. When I'm looking on the Corona crisis, what I see in the media, that's the news about people who are dying, people who are losing their livelihoods, government debts increasing, etc. But what no one is discussing and talking about, that is how to not just manage through it, but to develop through it. And here I think actually on a crisis like this, we need to think both on our own personal development, and we also need to think about on how we develop business, the society, and rebuild the economy. And actually I have a little personal story about doing that. I'm a chairman for an industrial company. And when we saw the ugly face of Corona a year ago, we thought about to the financial crisis and said, So without hesitation, we actually laid off all low-performing employees and we put a pressure on sales. And 2020 was the best year ever. Our top line grew 17% and the bottom line was the best ever. And that's an industry where our competitors are struggling. So actually the Corona here was a wake-up call for us. And acting?
I think I want to underline that what you just said. Corona was a wake-up call. I'll use that later.
Because actually what we did, it was not rocket science. We could have done it anytime. We just got that trigger point. We capitalized on it. And so in a way that was great. But, what I really would love to dig into today is really to have a dialogue about how we can use Corona both on a business level so we can feed ourselves and feed society going forward, and also on a more social and personal level.
This is the reason why I loved to talk to you previously on such topics, and that's why I think it's important we share such a dialogue with the world, because you come from this background of the red ocean of competition,
right.
That bloody sense, and yet you are looking from this wider perspective, trying to bring the human dimension in it. And I know a lot of people are trying that today. But I want to point out one element here. The way we see the development, especially the personal development, the way we see spiritual evolution, to put a very pretentious term on it, even though it has some connotations that I find a little bit dogmatic. The way we put all these transformational processes is today biased, as it is severely biased the way we see the economic growth, the growth of leadership, the growth of the structure of the society. So you see, they are talking today about a great reset of the economy. I think that's expressing the mistake in itself, because you cannot reset the economy if you don't reset the people who created that economy. We created that because we have some limited view, and as long as we don't have an update on our limited view, so that we not make it unlimited perhaps in the first step, but at least enlarge it beyond its current limits, we will not be able to, for instance, find solutions like the one you described, which is thinking out of the box. This is what you did, isn't it, for the company? You just suddenly, because of the trigger, which was Corona, obviously you didn't get sick with Corona, but it was the trigger of an impending crisis which forced you to think out of the box. But I want to underline the fact that we're not used to look at these kind of situations with the eye of growth, with the eye of transformation. We look with the eye of fixing, a quick solution, a patch. Even though, yes, some people are doing quite a great deal of effort to find some more comprehensive solutions, but honestly is a better patch. So it's like you're not patching the pipe, you try to patch all the pipes in the building. Still, you didn't change the system of pipes, or even the system of circulating the fluid, because perhaps you have different ways to circulate the fluid inside not pipes but magnetic fields, and then suddenly you don't have corrosion problem, you don't have sediment problem, and so on. Just the example with patching a pipe. So what I'm saying is the fact that I see this need today to understand that without looking simultaneously in the inner growth and the outer growth, excluding one for the other, we will not be able to move forward. Until now, we were allowed to move forward. We were growing inside for a while, other people were growing the outside, then they exchange. The people who did the meditation, spiritual practice, they have to pay the bills. Then they went out, and the people who have enough wealth to pay the bills, they feel miserably, they went to meditation. And this swinging process created kind of a, let's say, accepted solution until now. And it was valid for, I would say, you can recognize it in the last 2 centuries in the human society, in all the industrial development and so on. It's not valid anymore. In my opinion, this crisis is a crisis of these 2 sides of life. The external life, the life of your business, your occupation, your wealth and so on, and the internal life. The way you use all these things, the attitude you have in order to grow into that. And that is where I see the fundamental need now to move forward. That's why I wanted to start from there.
But Advaita, I agree completely. 2 points you're mentioning here. First of all, I agree 100% that there's no inner, there's no outer. It needs to be integrated. And then you mentioned a point about resetting, which are used in society, and it's not a computer game, it's life. We cannot reset the economy. Right now we are printing money, selling government bonds, building up debt, and there's no reset button afterwards. The debt is there.
It's a fake reset. I know we were talking about family and kids and so on, and if you remember, my point on that was, if you have kids, you will understand there is no reset, because once you got started, you can have the divorce in a relationship, but kids, they don't have a reset button.
Exactly.
You cannot cancel that option in your life. That's it.
There's no resets in life. It's real.
Exactly. All you have is a transformation of the flow. You can transform the flow in a direction that is supporting, let's say, some aspirations and so on. Great. But to think about a reset in terms of deleting, by the way, now you see obsession of deleting the past mistakes, the past options of past generations, practically deleting, canceling history, canceling culture.
Burning books
stage. All the tyrannies, they have that stage. I've been through one. I grew up until I was 20-year-old. I grew up in communism. I know exactly how it looks like. We did have this kind of experience, and interestingly, they use the same slogans. But yeah, you cannot have a reset. You can redirect. And the interesting fact that appears now, very obvious for people like you who are with one foot in in each domain, is the fact that you have to start from both sides to bridge these two domains. Otherwise, this schizoidic society that we have today, where if you deal with spirituality, with personal growth, you cannot cover your bills. You can, but anyway, you have a hard time for that. And if you go to an office and you perform, there is no room in your office for meditation, for personal growth, for having a spiritual view, which is telling, be generous. How to be generous when you work in a bank and you are the chairman? I'm not talking when you are at the desk, front desk, giving parking approvals and so on. I'm talking when you are taking decisions, how to apply universal laws that you learn, such as the law of giving, when you are producing wealth out printing money out of thin air, practically. And that's the interesting part. When you bridge the two domains, a natural reorientation appears.
Correct.
A natural reorientation appears, and when you start to look, for instance, to your job, to your activity, with the moral principles that you apply in your personal life, and then you look at your personal life with the efficiency and the determination that you gain in your job there, things will transform. I know a lot of people, for instance, who know what to do in their personal life when they go home from the 9-to-5 job. In relationships, in all kinds of issues that they have home, they know what to do, but they never applied that.
No.
And I'm asking them, look, you are a very important person in that company. Are you doing the same thing in the office? I'm wondering, why do they pay you? The surprising answer is that these people are saying, no, I'm very good in what I'm doing. You are either schizophrenic or you have a beginning of that problem. Actually, we don't have personal schizophrenia today, but we have a schizophrenic society where you look from one angle, you see something, you look from another angle, you see something completely different, as if they're two different worlds living parallel with each other. And we even rationalize it today, and people call it being professional. I'm separating my personal
That's
life.
nonsense.
which is one of the fundamental mistakes. Of course, it is a protection mechanism, because you don't want to bring in your office your anyway confused family life, and you don't want to bring your stress in the office in an already burdened family, all the stress there. And that is the reason why the solution is from a simultaneous approach in a methodic way, with methods. There are methods where same person in the office, same person home, is transforming through different exercises and so on, transforming everything. You see, people say, if I meditate, okay, I will be a yogi. No, you will be also a very good leader. You will also be a person who is able to take wise decisions on the market, if that is your domain of activity. Or you will be compassionate in public relations, because this is what you are leading, a human resource department in your company, and so on. So it's like your growth is integral as a person, with a condition that we do not allow, or even not allow. Today, it's a little late for that. If we hammer down the wall that is separating these two domains.
Exactly. You need to put your mind free, not to control.
Yeah. And well, that's a challenge today. And that's the reason why, in my opinion, there is so little talk about opportunities that you see now.
Exactly.
Talks are almost immoral. And some people say, how can you talk of opportunities? People are dying now because of this crisis. You try to take advantage of it. Yeah, it is an immoral approach if you try to take an advantage from just one side.
Exactly.
But such a situation, exactly as your story very well pointed out in the beginning, is a trigger to encourage us to bridge the two. And the wall, just to get into the core of the problem, which I think is the core of the problem, the wall is fear. We inherited this schizoidic view upon life, where my personal life is separated from my achievements outside, and my achievements outside are totally independent on my attitudes and so on, which is a schizoidic tendency. And this scission is enforced by fear. That's why I started to say, this crisis is so personal. It's an enemy that can take us all. It's like, when it's a war, you hope that the bomb doesn't hit your house, even if it's the city that
Right.
bombarded. But with this virus, really, like, it can take anyone. And that is, of course, some people who try to take advantage of this, and there are opinions that is even engineered like this. I don't comment on that yet. But I just want to say that the fear that is obviously perpetuated for different reasons by media, by governments, and so on, has as an effect the wall, the scission wall inside of every citizen of this planet is increasing.
Correct.
We are further away from getting a solution and even to see the opportunity.
No, that's right. And actually, if I may move to on a personal level there, because opportunities in this field, a lot of people have lost their livelihoods, lost their jobs, and within the next months, we will see a lot of companies go bankrupt, and a lot of more people will lose their jobs. And my personal order book last year that just died on me when the corona hit, and many people need to seek new hunting grounds now. And I'm talking with a lot of people who can see their job will go bankrupt or have lost their job. And people are acting in very different ways. Some are saying, this look bad. I better look for a job in the public sector. Other people, they are sort of more courageous and take their savings and start up producing something, making a net-based company because whatever is on the net tends to work right now. But there's opportunities out there. And I'm just thinking, from a perspective that is slightly larger, how would you tackle it right now if you were among the people who needed to find a good, strong way of bringing in your income and want to do something more exciting than what you did?
Yeah. You mentioned one word which I think is the key to this, is some people who have courage. You said some people who have courage, they will start something on their own and build up something on the net, or some people who have courage. This is and it's not about, if I don't have courage, that's it. Courage can be and should be trained, because courage is the only cure to fear. You cannot stop fear, but you can cancel its effects with courage. Now, why I'm saying that is, apart from the fact that I've done this inside of myself and I've practiced even methods, there are practical methods where you can amplify courage greatly, I would say. But more than that, in this situation, you see, you will be able to have enough courage to look in both compartments there. Even if the wall is not demolished, but the quantity of courage that you grow inside, you will have courage to, for instance, make a step back, not immediately forward, not jumping reactively to the first opportunity that appear, which actually very often prove to be not that much of an opportunity, but a temporary patch. And instead of patching, you go a little bit, you step back a little bit, wait a second. That's a great opportunity to reconsider everything about my life. And what I would do now is to start to train, to develop my abilities. And I'm not taking online courses on, financial or whatever, engineering or something. No, because these are external aspects. Take care of something you ignored most of your life, which is the internal aspect. For instance, one of the things that helps a lot, courage. Another thing, build an optimistic attitude. An optimistic attitude can be built if you eliminate internal agitation. The capacity to focus your attention at will for long enough meaning as long as you decide, without your attention being taken by all kind of stimuli, that's a fundamental right, I would say, human right, which we ignore completely. We give it away to the publicity companies, we give it away to politics, we give it away to the outer world.
We actually break it down systematically.
Is broken systematically because the society is apparently more quiet if our attention span is shorter. Apparently more quiet. Why? Because we are locked inside of a prison of agitation inside. And that's the reason why sometimes, in a moment when you are calmer, when you took a walk outside, when you did something that is calming your inner agitation, you have a higher, broader perspective. Now, that is the essential aspect. I talk with a lot of people because it's the nature of my work. And one of the most frequent fears is, I don't know if I have the right perspective, if I see everything. I don't know what to do because I can't have overview. Yeah, which means you need what? Enlarged perspective. Enlarged perspective is not the result of accumulation of information. You see, it's an illusion. That's the reason why people today are glued more than ever to the screens that are providing information. Why? Because they are desperate to make sense. But the experience of sense comes from within when you clean the fog. How do you clean the fog? The fog is created by all kind of accidental shifts of your attention. Micro shifts. Micro shifts gathered together, they create an inner fog. Inner fog that is giving us a very narrow perspective, a very short-range perspective. And that's why what I would do, I would cool down a little bit, calm down a little bit. There are exercises, breathing exercises, concentration exercises, all kind of simple exercises, and even build, since we are now home, all of us, I would even build a personal routine, a personal habit of having that inserted gradually in my life, because that will result into what? Into my perspective being larger. Then with that enlarged perspective, I look around. And what do I see? Definitely I see further.
Correct. It's actually, I really like the approach with cleaning the fog, and it makes a lot of sense. And a weird little story here. Last week we were skiing as a family, and slightly competitive as we are, we tried to move, and it was very foggy. But my middle daughter still wanted to gain a lot of speed, and she ended up in a tree with a broken arm. So in a way, when you clean up the fog, you can both set the direction, and you can avoid getting into an accident.
But this is the fear. The fear is generated by the potential tree that hides there.
Exactly.
But the society tells you, now to use your example here, which is, I mean, it's not wonderful because I'm sorry for your daughter, but it's fitting wonderfully. You need to go faster, sometimes because you desire, like she wanted higher speed, correct. Sometimes because you are forced by the society, hey, if you don't do it in 1 week, somebody else will do it in 1 week. Or, so in this way, you need to move faster, but your inner fog is thicker and it doesn't allow you to see further enough to drive safely. You know that it's this concept in driving, adapting your speed to the outer conditions. They even say that. The accident happened because the driver didn't adapt the speed. So it's not about certain external indications. It is about adapting your speed to the conditions. If it's very foggy, so it could be 100 kilometers per hour the limit, or 120, but sorry, if it's foggy and you'd see 10 meters maximum, at that speed,
will kill you.
You're definitely not safe.
Yeah.
So, or if it's slippery on the ground and so on. So, and this is why people, in the immense majority today, when confronted with this kind of situation, they are suddenly self-aware of the danger and fear kicks in. Now, of course, the question that I know you have is, why didn't we? I mean, the fog was already there, correct. But let me tell you something. We were not forced out of our 10 square meter habitat, never in our lifetime. Most of the people living now on the planet, they got used. They went around and touched the trees. They didn't see the trees. So practically they went 10 meters back, forward, left, right, and they say, okay, that's my life. Just 10 meters. And then, of course, they know there is a tree in that corner, there is another one here nearby. So they started to get used. And now we are forced to immigrate. Basically, not by coincidence, this crisis was preceded by what? An immigration crisis. It's even an exterior world showing that. But even inside, things are not valid anymore. What you knew about the financial world, what you knew about the business world, what you knew about the society, the rules of morality, you cannot even use the words today because some woke brigades will come after you and cancel you because why did you use that word? So you have to read a dictionary every day. You grew up with certain notions and sorry, you can't use them anymore because I don't know, they have another meaning which somebody invented. What I'm saying is that in such an uncertainty, the fogginess is becoming painful. It's generating fear. Before it didn't generate fear. I hear this question a lot. Like, well, what are you talking about? I'm not foggier than last year. No, but you never moved from your habitat. Now you started to travel, and now you realize, wait a second, it's very foggy around me, and I can hit a tree. Correct. Then I have to slow down. But I hear people around me moving faster. What shall I do? Maybe I lose the opportunity. Maybe I lose myself from the herd because you want to keep up. Yeah, many people want to keep up. Maybe I will be left behind by life. Maybe I'm missing out. No? All these feelings, they are the predominant cause of fear today. And that kind of fear, it's I'm sure most of the people listening now, they will see it. They will say, yes, of course, I have that. Yes, it was already there. But now because we're moving for various reasons, because we're moving, then we see the fog. So the first thing is create a bubble of awareness, a bubble of light inside of you, where you can see instead of 10 meters ahead, 300 meters ahead. Well, 300 meters allow you what? Another speed. 100 meters make you already running because you can still be safe and running. You see, you have perspectives. Yeah. And then when you reach to the limit of that speed, well, you can increase it because once you increased the field of your awareness, once you removed enough fog, you know how to do it. And you just have to repeat the same procedure more and more.
And then it's a lot easier to be courageous. Because actually you don't have to be that much more courageous because you know what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, courage indeed, your observation is very nice because courage indeed is coming with less expenses than fear, even though fear is tempting for us because fear promise, which is absolute lie, promise safetiness.
Yes.
Fear promise, if you're afraid, you will be safe. But if you're courageous, you have more chances in a long run to be safe. In a long run. Fear promise an immediate result, and especially for people learning fast results, fast food, fast everything, fast sex, fast everything, quick results. Of course, what do you choose? A long, sustainable solution, courage in life, or a short-term apparent solution, anyway, for your short-sightedness is okay? Fear. Because fear keeps you within the 10 meters radius, which is the bubble of fog that you can see through with your little awareness. So, yeah, fear it is. Wait, if courage is there, immediately I will discover, but I'm very foggy.
Yes.
I can run very fast, but for sure I can hit a tree because obviously, even if you're courageous, the tree is still there.
Yes.
And that's the paradigm that people try to, they say, well, but if fear is still there, the tree is still there. If the tree is still there, what to do? Well, yes, courage doesn't solve entirely the problem. Courage just remove the fear.
Correct.
Exactly. When you have a gun, and normally the guns have a safety, so that the idiots don't shoot themselves in the foot when they walk around or something. So, of course, it's a safety there. So that's fear. You're afraid to have an accident. So you have the courage, you remove the safety. Still, you don't know how to use the gun. So you still have to learn and to even learn how to aim correctly, because even if you have the courage to shoot, you will shoot in all kinds of directions, chaotically. But the trick that I hear many people saying, you say, you should have courage. Oh, this will solve my problems. No. It will not solve your problems. You still have to deal with them, but you are in a much better condition to deal with the problems if you have courage. Not that it's solved as people expect. Fine, I'm coming from a passive attitude of fear. I'm moving still passive, hoping, okay, courage will solve everything. So I close my eyes, clench my teeth, and start running, even though I don't see through the fog more than 10 meters, but I start running.
And that's stupid.
They hit the next tree and they say, I knew it. This is totally wrong. Then they never move.
No, correct. Because courage and stupidity, the dividing line, that's visibility.
Yeah. Very good. Yes.
Okay. No, I think that was a good answer. So basically, now when you're out searching for a new way of making your living, you should not seek shelter. You should go for awareness, increase your visibility, and then have courage to move. Another point here I would like to talk with you about, that is really the social distancing. The lockdown here, a lot of people, are not seeing anybody, or very few. I think it's great personally, because I'm wasting less time. I have more time for what I think is important.
It's very specific, I have to say, here in Scandinavia.
Yes, but a lot of people are actually pretty frustrated. And I think what would be nice here to hear from you is two things. First of all, people need to maintain their inner health. Do you have any good advices for that if they feel sort of fighting, if they're fighting this? And then secondly, all this peace and quietness, all the time that is released, can that be used in a good way to develop yourself?
Really wanted to take the bull by the horns. Yeah, let's start with the first part. And I want to give you a very interesting example. Years ago, we were doing some research on how can you control certain brain patterns, brain waves, in different special environments. And among other things, we did experiments in the silent room. This kind of rooms where they test hi-fi microphones and so on. So it's a room where you have zero sound. Well, it's not zero absolute, but anyway, it's like really, for us, for our senses, it's zero. And we went there to the testing place, and the technicians in the place there, they say, please make sure you go in and out like 20 minutes, every 20 minutes to go out. And of course the question came from us naturally, why? It has very unpleasant effects if you stay too long. Like what? What do you mean? No, people freak out if they stay too long in the silent room, yeah? And asking them more, they say, look, it's simply, your head explodes, not physically, absolutely, but explodes of your thoughts, you can even hear your breath so loud that you can't believe that it's such a big loud that you produce in the universe, which is completely true. We tested it, I've stayed there. They were shocked when they saw us doing meditations of 3-4 hours, completely still, in perfect silence, and moreover, the recordings of the brain patterns were showing profound state of peace, balance, happiness, which were like, whoa, usually this after 20-30 minutes grows like like errors in an electronic circuit. You know that if you have this cascade circuit, errors are reintroduced in the circuit, and after a while, the circuit can fry by its own errors. So it's practically we're like a feedback loop, error adding system to ourselves. Now, I gave this example because that was silence. So it was not a stressor. The only stressor was inside. You brought it in the room. The room was perfectly silent. And yet you have to go out of the room where practically you would say, very often people today say, I would like a quiet place. Oh, really? Let me put you in a very quiet place. Then they say, no, please. It's too quiet. Now, it's exactly the same pattern, but of course, a little more nuanced, but exactly the same pattern that we see today everywhere. So in this time, it's a very good opportunity to notice such elements. We wanted a little bit of peace and quiet. We wanted to take a break, but when the break is given, we can't have it. We can't use it. Why? Also because we're not used with the inner world. You see this stress of social distancing. I liked very much a joke. It was circulating among us here in Scandinavia. It was this cartoon, if you remember, in April, it was last year in April, it was saying social distancing, like this 1.5 meters, is over next month. Thanks God we can go back to our 6-meter usual distancing in Scandinavia. So it's like social distancing of 1.5 meters for, I don't know, Romania, where I grew up, or other countries would be painful. But here it was like, yeah, fine. Why, you want me to squeeze with people at a distance of 1.5 meters? Are you nuts? So it was actually a recommendation of squeezing. No, but of course it was a joke. We laughed of it a lot, but it reflects a certain reality. And even though it is that reality, even in Scandinavia, there is a stress. They even talk about this tiredness. People are tired of these measures, corona measures, and so on. And of course, you have to look into what is actually the stress there. The fact that we don't meet other people, or the fact that we put so much price on the way we meet other people. We put so much of for instance, the price on validation. We put so much on these elements. I'm not saying human contact is extremely important, but honestly, we do it very poorly. And we do it very poorly even on the internet. I mean, through the internet, we do it almost zero. But when we have the occasion, we also do it very poorly. People hardly talk to each other for real, acknowledging each other's presence when they are together. And because of that, they don't really get in touch. So that's why social distancing was doing one thing in reality, which was the major stressor, in my opinion, was reminding us how distant we are to each other, which was a constant repetition. Stay at the distance. You know, the effect of forbidden fruit. Don't take that, you tell to your child. Of course, he is dying to touch it and to take it. It's obvious. It's a reminder of something you wanted to do. And the fact is, you are asking the child, and also adults are reacting in the same way. You are asking, but if you wanted it, why didn't you say anything before I forbid it? They can't even say. In reality, when you mention don't take that, or you're not allowed that, then you are more aware of your need or your desire. And then it becomes irresistible because it's a constant reminder. You put that on the door, it's a forbidden place. Actually, really, I want to go to see what is there. Otherwise, you cross that door every day for 20 years, you never even thought. to open the door, say hi to those people. But if you say, this is a restricted area, oh, come on. I mean, it hurts me. But it hurts me because first I became aware of the existence of that area. The warning signs remind you. So that's why with many things in our life, it happens like that. We are reminded now, stay at distance, and now we realize something very peculiar. Actually, we need to be in touch.
But if I might just have a reflection here, because what you're saying is really interesting. Because actually what we got now is not a new distance, it's just a physical distance. And now we are just waiting to reduce the physical distance. But we will not really meet our needs, because we need to be aware about how to meet people in a more meaningful way. Otherwise, it's just a drug.
We will go back to what it was.
Yes.
And what it was generated the crisis. So it will be a vicious circle. So that's why I'm saying it is the fact that we got reminded of a need that we ignore. But the need that we ignore can be supplied by, in this time of isolation, so to speak, to remove the isolation to ourselves. Let me tell you something very interesting. Statistically, people now stayed home more than ever. Many of us stayed home more than ever in the last 3 decades, like in my case. But people spend time to look at themselves less than before. They spend time desperately consuming Netflix or whatever is that. Or they find they're desperately consuming anything they can outside in their little bubble there that they created, because there was another problem there. We systematically refuse to look into ourselves, inside. But of course, when the life was very entangled and kept us almost crucified in very many directions of duties and desires and so on, the need to look inside, which is the fundamental idea that makes us be in touch with the others as well, in a very fulfilling and meaningful way, the need to look inside was practically lost in a very comfortable way in the outside noise. But now suddenly we are sent home and we are given silence. We are in the silent room suddenly. Then we desperately try to make noise. We tried anything possible.
Posting desperately on Facebook.
Doing whatever we can to what? To maintain the attention glued outside, refusing to acknowledge there is someone in the room, which is producing the whole noise, which is me. And then that someone has aspirations. Time to look into them. Has things that I'm not very happy about. Time to look into that and take measures and so on. And while we do this, the end result naturally is we have meaningful connections with others. Totally meaningful. Even at distance. And then when we come in the same room with another person, but with us knowing ourselves, when we were alone in the room, we know the other one, and we can have such a meaningful togetherness with the other one. So, if you stay in the silent room, perfectly silent, inside, when another one comes in, you can share such a meaningful silence. But if not, you are annoyed by your own noise. Guess what? When another one comes into the room, now you are annoyed by his noise.
Yes.
So,
without hearing you.
Meanwhile, hearing you, being covered by your own noise. So that's why this social distancing was a reminder, but I think it's removed easily if we take the chance to listen to the silence or the noise, actually, in the beginning, in our being. then it starts to be a journey.
So it's actually the gift of a lifetime to re-engineer our external relationships starting inside.
Yes, exactly. I have to say that I could have not imagined in the 30 years of experience with personal transformation techniques, with science, even having a little bit experiences in politics and economics, I could have not imagined a situation where we were given simultaneously a break. Such an amazing opportunity to do what? To do a step into the real us. Yeah, and then we will regrow a totally different world. A world where me is far more adapted to existence. Not to some existence or another. No, I'm adapted to my existence. And then me and you and everyone else adapted to their existence because they know who they are, we will make a totally different, superior, sustainable, happy society.
A question here for you, Advaita, because some people I know at least, they are, spending more time eating, gaining body weight. They're spending more time watching Netflix. So, they are, should you say, benefiting in a different way and not really growing internally. And they are sometimes also pretty frustrated and just screaming to go out and do what they did before, just probably with a higher pace, believing that will bring them forward. Do you have any good suggestions to how could I or other people approach good friends that are behaving like that and trying to sort of motivate them to look a bit inside?
First of all, I want to make a point here with motivating people. The motivation scheme in itself is quite toxic. Maybe in another discussion, if you're interested, we can approach that and dig into it, because the whole world tries to find motivations today. It's almost like a religious movement. Motivations. Find your right motivations, you achieve anything you want in life. All that. So I wouldn't go for motivation to motivate anyone. I would go to find and trigger some aspirations they do have inside. Everybody has some kicks deep inside of their heart. Everybody. This is the real reason why you get out of bed in the morning. This is the real reason why you still breathe. It is filtered through your computer on board, and it comes out in all kind of funny things sometimes. And then you try to patch with programs, exactly as we have these patches on the apps. You try to patch it in order to take the already deviated impulse of life, clean, pure inner aspiration, which was deviated through a labyrinthic associative pattern, and you try to patch it to bring it to something else. So it's a patch to a patch. Try to recompensate something. Well, there is a way to find inside of people intuitively. When you talk very close to each other, you'll feel and you'll see sometimes even their natural inclinations. Astrology tells a lot in that direction, by the way. And simply remind about this. Give a meaningful story. Give a meaningful example. Hey, wouldn't you like this? What I found even for my close friends, find very useful, I engage them into such activities. That reminds them about something deep inside. And then they say, wow, that was amazing. You can repeat it. And then slowly they look for more. They look for a method They look, that felt great, but I would like to sustain it. Well, if you want to sustain it, it comes with a certain effort and so on, but they are ready because they feel the effects already. So, you see, that kind of aspiration, I would dare to say everybody on the planet has it, to have some profound achievements with their life. But then it comes out in all kind of filtered ways. But you can trigger a certain, let's say, profound aspiration. You can find it and tickle it a little bit, and then it starts to grow. They feel it. They start to feel, they remember about it. Many of these things are manifested when we are teenagers, but in a storm of hormones, we can't make heads and tails to it. And then they are kind of the teenage dreams, which we forget about because we mature and we put on all the filters and so on. But actually, when you tickle those, people become suddenly more idealistic, if you want. But those ideals are not crazy. Those ideals are actually the carrier of a force that is inside of us that is very much in tune with the opportunities that the environment offers. So you will be suddenly having the appetite of, hey, I will just stay silent today. It's very good because you are not allowed to go out. Perfect, excellent. What a coincidence. Well, it's not a coincidence. It's you being in the right place, in the right time. And we're designed by even our physiology is designed like that. We have quantum mechanisms that keep us in tune with the events around us, unfortunately not knowing almost anything about it. We take decisions in all kind of arbitrary ways, and then we end up entangled in all kind of complicated, labyrinthic life situations. But we can disentangle ourselves by remembering these fresh aspirations. And then people see it, and they start to follow. They start to follow their own, not to follow you or to, they follow their own aspiration. And then it starts to make sense. I know a lot of people now who are saying, if this crisis will last for a few more months, I'm fine with it. Why? I still have a lot of work inside. Excellent, because it seems like the plans are to last.
Yes.
What a while.
No, that's right. That's right. I think that's a good advice, Go for people's inner aspiration, try to understand them, try to point them a bit in that direction. That's a good point. I like that.
Well, we are getting late now, Thomas, and I want to invite you for a follow-up
on these
elements, and as I said, even other topics that I know you are very interested in. And maybe let's try to make a conclusion. What would you take out of this journey we had together?
One sort of overriding theme here, and that is go inside. Go inside yourself. Really, my first question was related to how do you sort of find a new way of living? How do you redefine yourself in the workplace? And I think I got the surprising advice here. You should really start building awareness, remove the fog, and have the courage to move, and you should not seek shelter. And we relate, and then sort of the more internal point, how do you as a human get through the crisis with less social contact? The theme here was also go inside. And really, I think you pointed out very precise that the social contacts a lot of people had before the crisis was actually not particularly deep or particularly meaningful. Go back, understand yourself, and when the doors open again, develop deeper relationships. I think that's sort of my key takeaways, but I think there was a lot of really, really good insights, so I highly appreciate those. Thanks a lot.
Thank you also. Thank you for summarizing. I wouldn't put it better, I have to say. Thank you for all this and thank you for participation. I'm waiting for you again in this talks in the Continuous Transformation podcast. So that is all for today. Thank you very much for listening or watching if you are watching it. And please follow our YouTube channel. Comment below. Let me know if you have other questions, or even if you want to have other topics that we approach in these meetings. Remember that being alive means a continuous transformation. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Continuous Transformation podcast. For more episodes, articles, and events, visit advaitananda.com.